Is using donor eggs giving up on yourself? That's the question that haunted me for 2.5 years. It's the one that always found me at 3 a.m. when the house was silent and I was staring at the ceiling, wondering if I was failing a test I never even signed up to take. I'm Mom on a Mission, and today I want to share the unspeakable fears I lived with and how I finally realized that for me, choosing a donor wasn't an act of giving up, but an act of fierce protection. For a long time, I lived in that damned if you do, damned if you don't loop. On one side, I desperately wanted our family, the dream my partner and I had built together. But to be honest, on the other side, I was absolutely terrified. I was scared that if I insisted on using my own eggs, my child would be the one to pay the price. I worried about health issues and chromosomal risks. I had to ask myself a gut-wrenching question. Is it an ethical trade-off to pursue a genetic link if it means my child might struggle with their health? And I needed to make sure that our child was okay after we were gone. In fact, our child had to be able to take care of themselves in the future and not need full-time care as an adult, because who would be around that I would trust to do it? At this point, I felt so alone in this decision. I was scared that my partner and my friends would see me move to a donor and think I was just calling it quits because I was just tired. I'd had enough. I gave up. I thought they wouldn't understand. I was so scared of making a final decision that I stayed in that own egg loop for years, literally just waiting for the clock to run out. I let the threat of aging out become the looming deadline because I was just too paralyzed to face it and to choose. Wait, I remember the exact moment I realized that being a mother starts with making the best choice for my child, not the easiest choice for me. I found Epigenetics. I discovered that I wasn't just a host. I started to see the donor's DNA as a library of books, but I was the actual librarian. I was the one deciding which stories got told. My body, which meant my blood, my nutrients, my heartbeat, is the environment switching on those genes. Although the donor provided the blueprint, but I am the architect building the home. And then before I tell you the one thing that really made me feel like I was giving up on everything I ever wanted as a family, I want to make sure you have the same clarity I had to fight for. I've put together a resource at donoreggdiary.com. It's a free checklist. Actually, there's several, but this is a free checklist for using donor eggs after the age of 45. And this isn't just a list of medical steps. It actually covers the real, raw decisions you may actually face going through this over the age of 45. These are the emotional hurdles that the clinics don't always prepare you for. It's the map I absolutely wish I knew when I was still completely lost in even trying to understand what using donor eggs was for and what decisions I actually truly had to make. So, what was the one thing that made me feel like I was giving up? It was my own erroneous assumptions. I'll be completely honest, and I will say this sheepishly. I had some really negative impressions about this process. I shamefully admit that I used to think, what kind of a woman would sell her eggs for money? What is the quality of someone who does this? I had all these ugly judgmental thoughts about the actual donors themselves. And unfortunately, I was using those assumptions as a shield to keep me from having to make any decision. But I did find the solution that took the pressure off. I realized a bit almost too late. I realized that deciding to research it isn't the same as deciding to do it. I had to make a deal with myself. I was going to look into the facts so I would have no regrets later. I challenged all my initial thoughts. I forced myself to look past all my assumptions and see the reality of the process. And the good news, researching it made the choice feel less scary, not more scary. Yes, it made it real. Yes, it made it uncomfortable for the moment, but it did clear the fog. And I can tell you now, it worked for me. I did what I call the 3-year test. I imagined myself 3 years into the future in my kitchen with a crazy toddler covered in spaghetti sauce, laughing and reaching for me, saying, Mom. In that messy, beautiful moment, I didn't care about the DNA blueprint. I didn't feel like an imposter. I just felt like a mother who had actually finally won. And that is my reality now. For me, choosing a donor wasn't settling, finally, but I had to do the research to find the answers to make it make sense to me and to our family. You have to look for that one thing, or maybe it's several things that really stand out to you, because that's the only way you're going to be able to make a decision from your heart that you will feel good about. So clear out the anxiety to make room for a happy human being that could be more of a possibility if you do use donor eggs. But as I say, remember, this is totally personal and up to you. I am here just to give you my opinion of how I went through it, and hopefully it helps. But I can say happiness was waiting for me, and I just had to be brave enough to look at the facts. Anyways, I'll see you in the next entry. Thanks. Bye bye.